Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's class. Rahim, I don't know why your hand is up. Just write what you want to write in the text box, okay? So welcome to today's class. Today we'll be looking at some advanced methods of handling forms in React. Please acknowledge you can hear me in the text box, please. All right, okay. Good. So let's just get right into it, okay? So today we'll be looking at some methods of handling forms, right? So from last week, we looked at controlled forms and uncontrolled form components and uncontrolled form components, right? So this week, we're going to look at some advanced methods of handling forms and also handling validations. I believe we all practiced what we did last week with regards to validation and other concepts that we learned, right? So yeah, so nobody practiced. I can't see any yes or the text box. Did you get your hands dirty? Did you try to yes, okay. Okay, so Ryan, this is not the place for this particular comment. I don't look at tax on these calls. Okay, so let's go ahead. So today we'll look at Formic. Formic is a React library that's designed for handling forms, right? From the name already, you can already tell. So I'm going to drop a command in the text box that you can use to install Formic in your application. So basically, to install Formic, all you need to do is npm install Formic, right? But when working with Formic, we will be using York. York is a lightweight validation schema tool that we'll be using to handle all our form validations. Are we together? So we'll also be installing York. So we can add York here to our installation command. And then we'll also look at another, we'll look at the lightweight and powerful library too that React also provides called React Hook Form. So for React Hook Form, we also add, so we just have everything installed in our project. Now, remember that we might not necessarily utilize Formic and React Hook Form in one project. So you can actually install all this on their own. You can install npm install Formic, and then you can do npm install York. Yeah, York. And then you can do npm install React Hook Form. Okay. At the same time, you can put all of them together and install at once if you want to. So I won't be installing this because I've already installed those libraries in this application to save time. Okay. All right, let's go ahead. Please acknowledge that we are together. Are we together? You don't need to put any comma. Just if you want to put all of them together, you just add them. I would advise you just install them on their own, like separately. if you don't mind. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at, let's create a new component and call it formic form dot JSX. Okay. Yeah, so it's pretty much the same thing. All of them are in that command I dropped earlier. You can see npm install formic, your React hook, so you can separate them. I'll drop this again. Okay, so first thing we'll do is to make our importations as we always do. Import. So let's import React from React, and then we can import import. So now we are going to be importing some tools from Formic, right? So first we'll bring in Formic. Then we want to utilize the form tag that is provided by Formic. And then we also want to utilize the field tag. And then we also want to utilize the error message. And all that, we want to take it from Formic, okay? Then we will now bring in Yop. So we have imported Yop from Yop here, okay? Let's go ahead and write our validation rule now. So to write our validation rule, let's say we are trying to create a simple sign up schema where we'll have name and email, right? So I can say sign up schema, and then I will now use Yop dot object. Now, what I'm going to be doing in this line, what I've done in this line here, this Yop dot object is simple. I'm only saying that for this schema, it should be an object, and this object will now contain other schemas, right? Like the single schemas for my input fields, correct? So I've said it should be of shape. It should be an object, and it should take this shape. So it should take the shape first name, and then we should also have last name, okay? And then email, okay? Yeah, so let's just utilize these three for now, okay? And then we can now close our schema. So now we've designed a simple schema for validation, okay? As you can see here, we have Yop, and we have declared that for this email, it should be a string first, and then it should be an email. Now, the fact that we're adding email here would help us, will help our input field check that email format. So if the email does not have an @ right? Remember what we did in our form last time when we're trying to manipulate, when we're doing validations with the @ right? So now what Yop does, Yop handles all this already. These are like provisions from Yop, right? So the fact that you have already declared this as an email, if any input that is made to this particular field is not a correct email, it is going to throw this validation error. Okay. Now we're also adding that this email is required, it's a required field. So if this email is not added, it should also throw a required field validation error. So let's say email is required. Okay. So let's improve on our validation. So now we are now also saying that first name should be required, right? So first name now is also a required field, and last name is also a required field. So for each of these fields, if you don't add content to them and you try to submit, it should throw a validation error of first name is required. Likewise for last name, and then likewise for email. So if you see, we have two validation checks for email. We have to check if the email is valid, and also make sure that the email is imputed. Okay? Are we together? Do we understand so far? Are we together? Any questions so far? Do I have only Udo in this class? Are we together? So just raise your hand if you have a question, and then I would tell you to unmute yourself. All right, Yasira, go ahead and unmute yourself. So I cannot hear you. I want to be.
Sorry, good afternoon. Can you
Yeah,
hear
that's
me now?
better. Yeah, that's better.
So I noticed that this sign up schema, you saved your page as formic form, but when you want to write it, it's not conformic form. So I
Yeah,
want to
so
be sure that can we change it to another thing, even if it's not formic we use. If it's formic we use, can we change that const to something else?
okay, so basically
Just
we
the way
haven't
you
even
teach.
started creating this component, okay? So
Okay.
we're only writing our schema. That is
Okay.
validation schema. So
Okay.
yeah, so basically it's advisable to write this somewhere else. You should have like a utils folder. So this is how I would like us to have our validations if we are using a validation library like this, okay? So always create a folder called utils. So this is like your utility folder where you can have like helper components or helper files. So let's assume that I want to have a validation file here, right? And I can call it validations.js. So if I come out here, this way now, you won't get confused with what we did here because we haven't created the component here. So all I need to do is remove this from here. So I'll need to take out the importation too. And then I'll come to my validation schema and add it here, okay? Now all I need to do is export this rule. So if I come to my function now, to my component, all I need to do is import that schema. So let's take the name. Okay. Okay. So now we have our validation schema imported, right? So is this confusing? Did I confuse you in any way here? I hope we are together. This is clear. Okay. X, I don't know why your name is just EX, but go ahead, unmute yourself. Okay, so
Good evening.
yeah, good evening.
Sorry. Good afternoon. I wanted to ask that asterisk, it doesn't mean everything.
What?
The import asterisk, does the asterisk means everything here? So I want to be since
This is actually how we import YOP. So just import it like that. But you're actually utilizing YOP. So you are importing everything in YOP, and you are calling it YOP. It's
okay.
like a clear statement now. You can read the statement and deduct what we're trying to do here. So we're importing everything as YOP.
Okay. Just wanted to be clear. Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, you're welcome. So back to our validation, right? So we've been able to declare validation rules, right? For first name, last name, and email. Now we will now go and start creating our form. So remember that we've imported everything we need. We have formic here. We have our sign up schema. Yes. So I think Yasria asked the question with regards to if this name here must conform with the name you saved your component as, right? So basically for readability, it's ideal that it should, so that if I click on this, I should not be confused inside here, right? So I should be able to see formic forms and I come inside and it's actually formic forms component. But yes, definitely you can actually change the name here. Okay. But for readability and yes, for readability purposes, it's actually better you utilize the same name as how you've saved your component. Okay? Is that okay? Are we together? All right. So function, then let's call it formic forms. Okay. Then let's return. Okay. So for this now, for us to create this formic form now, we are going to utilize this component provided by formic. So for the form component itself, we will say formic, and then we want to have an initial state. We want to declare an initial state. So we say initial values should be name, email, and password. So we are not using password. So we have first name, last name, and then we have email. Okay. All right. So now we've defined our initial value. So basically for formic, please, Timna, that's why you're supposed to join the class early. So I'm not sure that's supposed to be our problem if you just join the class. Then we now add our validation. So as you can see, with formic expects that validation, right? It expects you to bring a validation rule to the table, right? So now we have declared our initial values as first name, empty, an empty string, last name, an empty string, and then email, an empty string too, right? Then we have our validation schema added, which we already created here, right? Then we can now define our onSubmit rule. So for this case, we want to just have a simple, let's say value. Okay. And then let's say arrow function. We want to just have an alert inside here, okay? So let's just add an alert that says submitted values, and then we stringify our values, right? Okay. Now, let's close this. So now we have our formic designed, right? So basically, all we want to do now is write our form inside this formic provision. So we will now say so we utilize this, and then we can add. All right. Hold on. Sorry. Okay. All right, that's better. Okay, so now we can write our form inside here, and we are going to also utilize the provisions that Formic has already given to us, right? And then we can close that form. So within the form, we can now design our label. We can add our label for first name, and then we can add our field and error for first name, right? So now you notice that we imported all these things already from Formic. So these are like components that are already provided by Formic, okay? So all we need to do is utilize it inside our form. So what has happened here now is that we are using Formic field, we're using Formic error message, and then we are matching them based on the name, as you can see. You see that name for this error message field is first name. Name for this field is first name, right? Are we together? And then for this error, we've already decided that for this, we want this component to be a div, okay? And then we have given it a class name. So we can actually style this particular message however we want with this error class name, okay? So now we'll go ahead and add other fields for last name and then for email, okay? Then we have our submit button. All right. So now basically for this now, this will look very tacky in our UI. So we've not actually utilized this anywhere yet. So let's go ahead and export it. And then we can now pull it into a component, okay? So let's utilize this whole page. So we'll utilize the home page to display our form components, okay? All right, so basically let's change this. Let's remove this and call it formic forms. All right. So now that we have this done, if we go to our UI and navigate to the home page, we should pretty much see our form. Okay. So as you can see, it's looking very bad. Doesn't look nice at all. So let's just do some styling. Okay. Just, this is not serious styling. It's just, okay. So basically, we're just adding some styling to what we're doing, okay? So this won't be form header. Yeah. Okay. So let's call it form wrapper, okay? Or form field wrapper, okay. All right. So we want to utilize that very style for all of them. So we will just duplicate this to each one of them, okay? Then we can have one universal div to house all of them to wrap the whole form. So we don't necessarily need to, we can add class name here and just call it form wrapper. Okay. All right. So now let's just style this quickly. So this is not best practice. We are not supposed to be styling your components in here. This is supposed to be global styling, but let's just use it for the purpose of this class, okay? So we say, so we want to, let's see what this style looks like. Okay, so we have that done. Then we want to also style our form field wrapper. Okay. And let's see what that looks like. Okay. All right, so we have a nice looking form out here, and we can now go ahead and test our work, right? So basically what we have done now is utilize Formix provision, right? So we have used everything that Formic provides. We use the form, we use the field, and then we also use the error component, right? So now what happens here is, because we have defined our validation rule, and then we have our initial values. So Formic handles everything with regards to picking the values from our form fields. That is all the unchange, and like we had in as you can see here, we have an unchange, we have values, we are trying to get the values, we have unchanged, we are manipulating these by setting these particular values to states and all that, right? Then we had to create our own error component, right? Now, what happens in Formic is Formic does all that work for us, right? Which is why it's advanced, right? And this is why most people prefer to use Formic, okay? So now what happens is, if we come to the form now and I click inside here without adding any content, you see that it gives me an error, first name is required. So let's add a little bit of style to this error message, right? So that we can, so that it stands out, okay? All right, so red, okay. So good. So now you can see that we have first name is required. If I click on this and come out again, without adding any value, it shows last name is required, right? Likewise for the email. If I also add an email without the @ it immediately shows invalid email. And with this, it cannot submit. As far as you click on, once you click on this button, it will not submit because it has it's failing validation, okay? But once it's there now, you can easily submit this form, and then we can get what we initially wrote here. Okay, so it says submitted values. First name is David, last name is Edu, and email is davidedu@gmail.com. Okay, is this confusing to anyone? Do we all understand what we're doing? So I don't know why the class is so cold today, because I have a lot of people on this call and only 2 people are responding in the text box, so I'm confused. Are we together? Okay, so to remove the default validation, okay. So that's going to be your so you see this type. Can you see the type? So let's remove this type and see what we have, okay? So if we remove this and try to submit, that default validation does not show again. Is that clear, Udo? Yeah. Okay. So I believe everybody understands this, because from the text I can see just 3 people responding, and I can't tell if everybody is with me. So I'm going to have to ask some questions. So Abiola, please unmute yourself.
Okay, sir. Good afternoon.
Yes, good afternoon. So what have you understood so far with what we've done?
Okay. From what I understand, Formic is a form library that's used to validate forms. So just like in the last class, in which we did it manually, but with this, we can be able to do it in a more efficient manner. So from this code now, the Formic, we've declared an initial value, which is the first name, the last name, and the email. So we also created a sign-up schema with YOP, which was used as the validation schema. So that validation schema validates for the first name, the last name, and the email. So on submit, then we can alert submitted values after passing through the validation. So if there is an error also, we provided an error message, which is gotten from the schema we declared earlier. So if the error is from the first name, it's return the error of the first name. If the error is from the last name, it returns the error from the last name. And if it's from the email, it returns the error from the email.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you for that brief rundown. Yeah, I appreciate the fact that you're paying attention. All right. So yeah, basically I did pass it as a function. Yes. All right. So let's go ahead and look at React hook form. Okay. So let's look at another example of a lightweight tool that we can use to handle forms, right? So let's create another form component and call it React hook form, okay? So before somebody asks a weird question, I'm naming these components based off what we are learning. So when you are creating your own form, you don't necessarily have to call it React hook form, okay? You name it based off what you're trying to achieve with the form. Is that clear? All right. Okay. So in this case now, let's begin with doing our importations. So React from React, and then we want to import use form from React hook forms, okay? All right, so we've imported that. So we will still utilize our validation schema that was created earlier. Okay. Okay, so let's work without that validation. Let's just understand the code itself, okay? So function React hook form, and then we want to the structure from use form. We want to pick out register, handle submit, and then we also want to pick out error from the form state, okay? All right, so we are taking, remember what the structure is. So we are taking all this is already provided inside use form. Use form is also a React hook, right? Is like it says React hook form, okay? Yeah, form states. Okay, states, yeah, thank you. All right. Okay, form states, okay. All right, let's go ahead and work with these provisions, right? So let's write out our on submit row. So we want to say on submit, when we submit this form, we want to do a similar action like what we did in the last form, right? We want to give an alert, okay? So for this, we want to use email and first name. Okay, so we will not only have email, we'll have email and name, okay? Okay. So let's go ahead and return our form, right? So for this, we are just using the normal form component, and then we are attaching on submit. For on submit, we are now going to utilize the handle submit that we imported here before, right? That will be structured from here. So we say handle submit, and for that handle submit, we want to take this action. All right? Are we together? So now that we have this created, all we are saying here is when the form submits, this should handle the submission. That is, we want to utilize our use form to handle the submission. And then we pass our submit function into that handle submit, right? Now we can go ahead and add a label for name. Now what happens here? I need you to pay attention to what's happening here right now, right? So in this, when we want to add our content, right? Yes, definitely we can put the type of text, and then we can give it an ID. Okay. Can give it an ID of name. Then for us to utilize this particular input with use form, we would have to register that input. Okay. So what happens is, to register that input, we would first of all spread register, and then we want to register it under the name, right? So basically that input field is name. The name of that input field is name. Remember that in this case, when we're handling forms here, we have the name field, right? And for the name field, anything we put here is what we are identifying this input field as. Now, in this case, we are registering this input field by this name, okay? Then we can now add our validation here. So I say required, and it should throw the error of name is required. Okay. So with that done, I can go ahead and close this input field. Okay. All right. Now we go ahead and add our error message. So we say if error.name and let's utilize the P tag and style it to red. Okay. So we have error.name.message. Okay. All right. So let's close this so that we stop seeing red. Okay. So now we have our, basically we have our name input field, right? So let's just bring that style that we did before. Let's bring that style here. Okay. So I believe that style is supposed to be on-field wrapper. Okay, form field wrapper. And then this should be on wrapper. Is it?
Hello, sir. Sir, we can't hear you. We can't hear you, sir.
Okay. All right, can you hear me now? Okay, yeah, sorry guys. I think I had an issue, technical issue. Yeah, thank you. You can all hear me, right? Where did you lose me? Yeah, thank you. Where did you lose me, please? Somebody just unmute yourself and let me know when you stopped hearing my voice so that I can take those things back again.
Okay, sir. I stopped hearing when you were trying to create the error message.
Okay, you can mute yourself, please. Yeah. Okay, I was trying to start the error message, right? Okay, all right, okay. That's fine. So basically what we have here. So like I said, we have registered this component now. When we talk about spread, I saw somebody ask a question with regards to spread. I think that was iPhone. And I was saying something about this iPhone user, this U iPhone. Please, you need to go and learn how to change your name. If you don't change that name, if you ask a question in the class, I will not respond to you because I don't know you. Is that clear? So if you are going to be joining with your phone, please learn how to change your name. Okay? So I think somebody was asking about spreading the register. So I don't know why we need to be talking about spread almost in every class. We've already spoken about this. We already know what it means to open this. We are opening up this register to add something to it. I'm not sure that is something that I should be explaining over again. Are we together? So basically, you know what we use spread for. So when you see me use spread like this, is for that exact purpose I'm trying to utilize spread, right? To do the same thing that I taught you before, back to back, like almost three classes. And if you don't understand it, then we might have a problem. Good. So, like I said, when I was explaining this, register here is part of the use form provision. Yeah. Yes. So register is part of the use form provision. Now, for a particular input field to be known by use form, you would have to register the input field. Now, registering the input field, you are defining first the name, then the validation rule. So you are saying this input field, I'm registering it just like you go to like in school and you have 10 courses that you are supposed to do, correct? Of course, you need to go and do registration for each of those courses. When you go to register those courses, they'll give you a little form. When you give you that form to register the course, you want to put in first the name of the course, right? Then probably the course unit and then other details that you want to put into that course, Abi. So basically, that's what you're doing here. You're registering this particular input field to the use form. Now, once you register that input field, any behavior, like as you can see now, for name, you can now access error by, like, you can now check the error for name, the error message for name. Assuming you did not register this name here, if you check error message, you will not have anything registered on that name. So if you check errors.name.message, you will get nothing, right? Now, that name should not confuse you. This name is not like, okay, let's use email to understand this better. So I'm registering this input field as an email, as email. So in our previous class, when we're handling this, remember that we have identifiers, a name identifier. Now, when we name this input field as email, anywhere we pick the value, right, we can access the value with this name. Are you following? Yeah, so why were they not imported like formula? Let's go back there. So basically what we did here is we just destructured from this particular use form. Now, if you come here, you see that they were not imported like forming, because we are importing the use form itself from React hook form. Then inside the use form, we are now removing all these properties that are built inside it. Udo, do you understand? Good. So we are not directly importing register or handle submit or forms from React hook form. We are importing use form, and then we are accessing this values, these components inside of use form. Now, once we have registered our input field, we can now access the data anywhere in our application, because now we can access name, we can access errors.name, right? Anywhere in our application, and then we can access errors.email because we have registered this email. Now, after registering the email, we have also added our validation rule. So what happens now is, whenever, remember that we're also picking the errors from here. Are we together? Yes, exactly. So I was expecting somebody to ask why we are not picking the error from form state here, because we're just going straight to error.name.message. So I was thinking somebody's going to ask why this looks like this. But I guess you guys understand, so it's cool. I actually like it. All right. Yeah, you are. Okay, you're getting to that question. We are pretty much almost done with this particular component. I believe we're at the stage where we are supposed to test it out now. So if you have questions, please, I need the questions like now so that we can brush them off and move on. Can I move on? Are we together? Can I move on, please? Yeah, so basically form state is also part of the provisions from use form, right? And this error is inside form state. So we are destructuring error from form state. Right? So what this is called, this particular method of destructuring, right, is called nested object destructuring. So what I've done here is I have destructured form state from use form, and then I am now removing errors from form state. Okay? So basically, what I can do here, I can still let's say I want to just give you another way of looking at what I did there. Let's say const use form contents, and then I taking these contents from use form. So use form. Okay. So in essence, now what I've done here, right? What I've done here is I have this like this. But in this case now, I not destructure it. This will contain everything. So everything is within this use form contents now. So if I come here and I say const and I say error, I can bring this use form here and access the form data, that is the form state rather. And then inside the form state, I can access the errors. Okay. So in this case now, I can bring this error here and use it here, where I can just use the error, this error here. Can say error dot name dot message, error dot name dot message. Do you understand? So now, what happened here now is that instead of this simple method of destructuring, I'm now extracting them one after the other from and passing them and declaring them as into this variable, right? Now, I can do the same for handle submit register. So I can decide that, okay, I can bring out register like this and also bring out handle submit like this. Okay. Now, all this code that I've written here is what I have done in this line of code. So basically, you are not accessing form states. The error message is inside form state. So if you can actually go ahead and destructure only form state, and then when you want to use it, you add. So let us also do that so that you also see that. So I can come here and destructure just the form state, okay? So now what happens is if I come here, I will need to add these errors. Form states that errors, the name. Okay? Are we together? But because I have, because I have the structure to access, to get, like to remove the errors directly, I don't necessarily need to always add form state anymore. I can just pass my errors directly because I have now brought it out, like I have removed it from the container and I can use it without referencing the container or without, yes, it's a lot easier. Yeah, so exactly. Are we clear? Are we good now? All right, so let's go ahead and test out our form. So I think, where did we haven't imported this form yet. I think we haven't actually exported it. Okay, so let's go ahead and import this form into, so we had the other form in the home page, correct? So let's add this form to the about page, okay? No, let's just have it here. Can go out this for now. Okay. So good. So imported now. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like. Good. So our form is ready. So we have, so let's, this. Okay. All right. So now if we click here and come out, if we try to submit this form, hold on, we don't have a submit button yet. So let's give it a submit button. Okay. So if we try to submit this form, we should get these validation errors, right? So if we add name and try to submit, you should not submit, you should still be giving us this error message. Now, if we remove the add, it should give us invalid email address. And then if we replace it, it should give us David Edwin. And then we can now click on submit, and then we can see our the values that we added for submission. So we have submitted info, David Edu and davidedu@gmail.com successfully. Okay? Are we good? Are we good? We can also test this again and submit, and we're good. Our form submits successfully, right? Are we clear, please? Is anyone lost? Everybody with me? I need comments, please, so that we can move. Just comment quickly so that we can move, please. Can you all hear me? Okay, all right. Okay, so this is what you're talking about. So this is just standard format for emails. Yeah, this is like email, like standard format for emails. You can even check online to get this. Then go ahead, yeah, rejects, yeah, exactly. Rejects format for email. So you can go ahead and explore, check online so that you can get like the explanation of each symbol here. Okay. So it's not complicated. Okay. All right. Yeah. So can we move on now? Are we good? All right. Okay. Yeah, Adelani, go ahead. It's a question. I'll mute yourself.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Sir, please, in cases, in scenario like password, where password requires some certain characters, how do we validate that? And also in case of like, some entry points of some websites to tell you password and also confirm password to be sure the password tallies. How do we validate that, sir?
Yeah, so basically let's just do a little bit. Let's use forming. Yeah. So if we come to this validation schema now, we can actually add password here. So let's say password. All right. So for password is still going to be a string, of course, right? So that string. Okay. Then we want to have minimum of 8 characters, correct? For our password. So if it is less than 8 characters, it should throw a validation error. password must at least contain password must be at least eight characters. Okay, are you following? Then we want to also add that the password is required, correct? And then if the password is not entered, we should throw password is required. If the password is not up to eight, if it's not up to 8 characters, we should throw password must be at least 8 characters, correct? Then we want to have confirm password, right?
Yes, sir.
Good. So for confirm password, we want to check based off our reference. Why is password? Okay, hold on. Okay, so for confirm password, right? We're also passing the string, correct? And the idea of confirm password is to make sure that whatever was inputted here is replicated here, correct?
Yes,
Now
sir.
we have the required. Good. So this one off, right? It's trying to say that for your preference of password. So we are referencing this password, okay? And we are saying that password must match. So if we reference this part, if you input into this input field and it doesn't match the password, we want to throw the error passwords must match. Then if nothing is entered, we want to throw required the required validation. Okay, so if we go ahead and add this into our formic form, right? So let's say we create new fields for password and then we call it, name this password, and then we name this confirm password, okay? Okay. Yeah, so password. Are we good? Are we following? All right. So this will be password, and this will be confirm password. Okay. Yeah, so you can write all that rule it's in your hands to write. You can write that rule. So if I click on this now, you see that password is required. Confirm password is required. If I put in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, you see, if it is less than 8, it gives us password must be at least 8 characters, correct? Okay, so it doesn't pass that validation. So if let me copy this and just paste it here. You see that it passes the validation. But if I change the last one to T, it says passwords must match. Are we good? So let's change it back to P and see what happens. Okay, let's just do this and try to submit. Doesn't go. So let's put P back here and then try to submit again. And now everything has submitted. Are we together? All right. Okay. All right. So basically, I think we have pretty much handled advanced forms, and this will bring us to the close of today's class. I hope the class was beneficial to you and you were able to learn something new. See you guys in our next class next week. Have a great week ahead and a great weekend. All right, bye guys, and thank you.